It's a joy to be with you. Merry Christmas. If you don't know who I am, I'm Reverend David Anckorn. I was executive minister here from 2008 until 2012, and it is a joy to be back among you today. No. You can stand up, but let's stand up to pray, all right? Let's go to the Word of our God. Gracious God, we thank you that you've brought us into your house, that your joy does come in the morning. We pray that today you would bless us, that you would open your Word, and that it would bury deep into our souls. You've given us the most excellent gift, a very sharp sword to divide bone from marrow, to enter into our lives and to enter into this world so that we might know your truth, your hope, your life, your love. I pray that today the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be made acceptable in your sight, for you are our hope, our life, our Redeemer. In Jesus' most precious name, amen. Please remain standing as we read a passage from Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 to 18. And when they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said. "Take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." And so he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." And when Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and refusing to be comforted because they are no more." May God add a blessing to the hearing and doing of his most holy word. Please be seated. I'd like to speak to you this morning about a topic I call Somos el Muro, which in Spanish means we are the wall. Now, Christmas is supposed to be a season of light, a season of hope, a season of Hallmark specials and Christmas trees and harried UPS drivers that'll run you down to get you your package from Amazon. But it is important that we come today and look at this season without the cranberry-colored glasses, and look beyond our own hearth. Sometimes the darkness out on these December nights is difficult and oppressing. Sometimes these days are not filled with light and with snow. Silent nights sometimes don't come by. Or even in our community, there are children who dread Christmas coming because they know that while they are out of school for those 2 weeks, their bellies will be empty. When Pastor Braxton told me of the theme of this Christmas season here at NBCF, coming from John 1:5, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it," where we consider the promise of Jesus in the light of our work in social justice, I wanted to take a hard look. a hard look at the darkness, and seek to bring the light. When I thought of this theme, I focused especially on this story. This story that is almost never told at Christmas. It's a dark story. It's a difficult story. And one that happens right after Jesus is born. It comes after that amazing story where some foreign kings show up and they see the baby Jesus. They celebrate the King of all creation entering into a dark and violent world, bringing salvation to all. And yet, right after his miraculous birth, one of the first miracles that enters into Jesus' life is an angel appearing to his father and saying, "You gotta go. You gotta run. The life of your child is in danger, not just from anybody, but from the king himself." It doesn't matter if your child is in danger if you're not ready. You run. It doesn't matter if you're not prepared. If the life of your family is at risk, you take what you can grab and you go. Think of those that fled from the fires in Northern California with minutes to grab what was most precious and escape through the flames. You see, the danger from Herod was real. He saw Jesus' life and the life of Joseph and the life of Mary as a threat. And if they were to survive, they were going to have to take those new Christmas gifts, those new presents from the Magi, and use them to flee to a foreign land. The thing that we've got to know about Jesus' birth is that it is not just a theological act. It's not just something about how God came into this world. Something that's all up into the head that is simply spiritual. The Son of God, incarnationally entering into this world, the eternal world, Word becoming flesh, as John says it. No, it's more than that, as amazing as that is. No, a child in the line of David, being born in the city of David, one who offers salvation, one who could be called the Messiah. It is a political act, as well as a theological one. It is a direct threat to the Hasmonean king who is set on the throne, not by divine mandate, but by the Roman government, as a puppet ruler. The thing that we have to come to terms with this Christmas, if we are looking at the justice in Jesus' time and the justice today, is that Jesus did not begin his life in an easy way. No, Jesus began his life as a refugee. You see, when he was warned by the angel in a dream and leaves in the middle of the night with his wife and baby boy, Joseph, when he runs for that border, he is throwing his life and the life of the king of the world into chaos. Now, I know there's been a lot of confusion in the news lately. But let's talk definitions to begin. The UN has a definition of a refugee. It says a refugee is someone who has been forced to flee his or her country because of persecution, war, or violence, and someone who has crossed an international border. A refugee has a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. The thing to, if you want to keep it straight in your mind, is a refugee flees from something. An immigrant moves towards. whatever the case may be, a refugee is running from something. Something based on their race or their nationality or just their social class. So for Jesus as a child, Christmas was a lot less like this and a lot more like this. See that child from Syria looking over his shoulder? Looking back at the camera? Looking to see who's coming after him? That is what Jesus' first years were like. Joseph, Mary, and Jesus had to spend their first years waiting for a king to die. Waiting for the political winds to change before they could return to their homeland. But just because Jesus made it to a safe country where he could grow up didn't mean the whole town got lucky. While Joseph was warned in a dream, those other parents were not. And Herod, just to have some political cover, ordered a massacre of the innocents, murdering all the boys under the age of 2 in Bethlehem and the surrounding area, so that he could have an excuse of plausible deniability. That when someone came to him 10 or 20 or 30 years from now saying, hey, there's a king, he was born in Bethlehem, Herod could say, or his sons could say, oh, no, there wasn't. No, all those boys died. You must be an imposter. No. Herod murdered the new generation so that he could have power for just a few more years. You see, children always pay for the powerful. They always pay first. They pay dearest. The most vulnerable, the weakest, they're the ones that pay the bills. They are the first to pay for the political expediency of a person in power. And whether they be in Palestine or Syria or Libya or France or even the United States, we got to think about this, people. As a church, as the people of God. There's a little graphic I want to show. It just demonstrates a little bit of what happened here in our United States in 5 weeks. 2,342 children separated from their parents when they came to the border to ask for asylum. And here today, even 6 months, 7 months later, a good percentage of those children have not been reunited with their parents. Our government does not know where their parents are. They lost them. And so these children are stuck with nowhere to go. The vision that the world has now of our country is not of a land of the free and the home of the brave, but it is more like this one here. A child crying from the tear gas that our country used to keep them away. Now, for those of you who know me, I am usually not this direct in a sermon. This is a different Reverend David A. I was executive minister here for 4 years, and when it came to the political, I usually let Pastor Braxton do the heavy lifting. Usually I'll have a jab here or a poke there, something to prick at the conscience so that we might be open to change how we relate to God and relate to others. But today we got to be different. If we're going to actually think about justice and think about what is right and how we should be and how we should live, I'd ask your patience about me being direct for a little while. We're going to change. We're going to ask for you to make a change in your life with God and with each other. We'll get there. But I'm going to ask you to hold on for a few minutes. As I get going, you're not going to agree with me. I'm okay with that. You may want to walk out on with me. And if you do, I'll pray for you as you go. That's okay. But on the issue of dying children, on the issue of families who cannot find a place that is safe, we should be angry about it. We should be direct about it. We need to be heralds of the light and not folks that just sit passively by. So, because God cares about it, hang on as long as you can. We have to be real about what happened to Jesus at Christmas. We can't just focus on the tradition and the cute, sanitized story that we tell our children. We got to be real about what are happening to refugee children right now. Children and families throughout the world are dying, trying, desperately trying just to get to a safe place. They died when Jesus went to Egypt, and they are suffering and dying right now. Right now, there are 68.5 million people who are forcibly displaced worldwide. 40 million are internally displaced. 25.5 are refugees. 3 million are asylum seekers. 65.5 million people. That's the population of California and the population of New York State combined. On the run, fearing for their lives, fleeing their homes without adequate food or health or schooling, not because they're looking for a better life, but because they would be killed if they stayed. I know for me, I would not walk 3,000 miles from Honduras to Tijuana, caravan or no, if my life was not on the line. I wouldn't float a leaky rubber boat across the Mediterranean Sea from Syria or from Libya to a place where they don't like me, where they don't want me, if my life was not on the line. I wouldn't run with everything that I had to a Burmese refugee camp from Burma, the place where my parents and my parents before and my parents before had stayed for generation upon generation, if I did not fear for my life. They move because they or their children will be killed if they stay. I know with the election and with all the rhetoric and the hyperbole about the migrant caravan, there is a lot of emotion on both sides. That immigrants are taking over the country, that they are dangerous criminals, that there's an invasion that requires us to deploy active U.S. troops to our border to protect us from women and children who've walked 3,000 miles. They tell us that MS-13 will terrorize our streets. But the fact of immigration right now is that we are doing less for immigrants now than we have done for decades. In 1980, this country resettled 200,000 refugees. 1980. Who was the president in 1980? Ronald Reagan, right? This country resettled 200,000 refugees. We found them place, we found them space, we found them a way to get started in this world. And it is my opinion that this world is better because of it. But in 2016, we could only find room for 85,000. Last year, 55,000. This year, we said, oh, only 45,000 will fit. But you know what? We've only resettled 22. This next year, the maximum limit for refugees in this country is 30,000 people. That's like, I don't know, let me do the math. What, 20,000 families? 10,000 families? We are the richest country in the world. We have 300 million people in this country. And we can't find space for 30,000 people? It's ridiculous. It's just plain selfish. Scripture tells us when an alien resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress the alien. The alien who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself. I think I remember hearing that somewhere else before. For you were aliens in the land of Egypt, and I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 19:33-34. When we hold our actions up to the mirror of Scripture, we are not doing well. We have this myth about our land being a home to the homeless and a land of opportunity, but in modern times, as the immigrant has become browner, as the immigrant has become more Catholic or more Muslim, or as the immigrant who is more likely to come from Bangladesh and Indonesia rather than Britain and Ireland, we've changed our tune. Right now, we might as well change the Statue of Liberty and just put a stop sign. That's what we say. That's how we act. Now, I know this is a difficult subject, especially in the black community. I know I'm not black. But immigration can be a very difficult subject in the African American community because oftentimes immigrants compete. They compete in neighborhoods, for housing, for jobs. That's the reality too. And there are plenty of native-born children of all races that suffer under threats of violence and lack of food and lack of education. We look, we see, and we perceive a threat. I've seen it myself. I spent a lot of years in construction. And I know the pain of not being able to get that job because somebody was paying somebody $2 less, or $5 less, or $10 less, because they'd take it and they wouldn't report it. But that's not the fault of the immigrant. That's the fault of the person paying the person. But many of us, we see immigration and refugees is just another unsolvable problem. Something that we want Washington, D.C. to fix, so that we don't have to worry, so we don't have to change our view of how we are and who we will be. We don't want to hear about dreamers or tear gas anymore. And yes, we do joke about our president's big, bold, beautiful wall. There are some examples of what he wants to build. A waste of money on a pointless piece of concrete. But I want to challenge us a little bit, if I haven't already. Last week I saw a video that made me look deeper into myself. It's a satire. It's intended for folks in Mexico, but I want you to see it. It's got subtitles, don't worry. But it's called Somos el Muro, which means we are the wall. I want you to look and read the subtitles and see.
We will build a great wall along the southern border, and Mexico will pay for the wall.
Yo no voy a pagar ese muro. Yo no voy a pagar ese muro.
Yo no voy a pagar ese muro.
Yo no pago.
No.
No voy a pagar ese muro porque yo soy ese muro.
Yo también soy el muro.
Yo también soy ese muro.
Yo también soy el muro.
Frente a la invasión migratoria centroamericana,
Somos el muro.
de Chiapas a Sonora,
Somos el muro.
del Caribe hasta el Pacífico.
Somos el muro.
No somos Honduras, no somos Guatemala, no somos El Salvador. Somos parte de América del Norte y estamos hartos de vivir como si no lo fuéramos. Cada país tiene un rol en el mundo y nosotros sabemos muy bien cuál es el nuestro.
Somos el muro.
Hay muchas maneras de ser el muro.
Yo no les ayudo, porque como vienen huyendo de su violencia, pues se supone que pueden pedir refugio y quedarse.
Yo no les doy trabajo.
Yo llamo a la policía. Se supone que no se los deben de llevar, pero igual se los llevan.
Si les doy, les pago la mitad. No nos damos abasto con servicios y medicinas para nosotros. Menos se los voy a dar a ellos.
Te roban al marido, sobre todo las hondureñas. Lo amarran con un hijo y ya, se naturalizaron. Míralas.
No, yo sí les vendo, pero les cuido las manos.
Si puedo, les cobro el triple.
Yo corro la voz de que son una plaga.
Yo no hago nada.
No importa, al no hacer nada también eres parte del muro. ¿Qué parte del muro eres tú?
¿Qué parte del muro eres tú? Eres tú.
It's okay to
¿Qué
shake
parte
your head.
del sueño americano? El alma del muro eres tú. Eres tú. Así, así. Eres tú.
Now again, this was intended as a joke. This was satire. Finely honed. Made by Mexicans, for Mexicans, to point at a bit of hypocrisy. Because they always say they don't want the wall between the U.S. and Mexico. They won't pay for it, they don't want it, it's unnecessary. And yet, many of those same prejudices that we have about Mexicans, Mexicans also have about Central Americans. They say things like they bring disease, that you can charge them triple or pay immigrants half. But when we see those sentiments, we might as well be applying them to ourselves. To folks in this country, where we say that we're full, and yet we get upset when strawberries cost more than $2 a pound in December. I'm sorry, those ones you find in the store right now are not picked by local farmers getting $15 an hour. They're coming from Baja or Chile or someplace where the person that picked it got paid a penny at best. The most troubling comment from the video is where the guy in the back of the cab says, "Oh, I do nothing." And then the lady comes up and says, "Don't worry. When you do nothing, you're part of the wall too." And then she asks, pointing to us, "What part of the wall are you?" That's a tough question. Makes you look deep. Kent is one of the most diverse places in this entire nation. And we got to reflect carefully on how we treat our neighbor, who we let our kids play with, what we say about someone when they speak a different language from us down at Kent Commons. The place where we're supposed to all be the same. Common, right? How do we welcome that stranger in our midst? Do we build up a wall or do we take one down? What part of the wall are we? Did you know that down in Tacoma is one of the largest immigration detention centers in the nation? Not California, not Texas, not Florida, Tacoma. Why Tacoma? Well, the land was cheap down on the Tide Flats in 2004, and City Council wanted somebody who'd pay. But now 1,575 people can be locked up waiting for their deportation hearings for months and for years. Now it's a flashpoint in the immigration debate here in Washington. But we got to ask ourselves, what's the church's role? What are we to do? Throughout its history, the church has been the place for the refugee to find refuge. The place for the one who is fleeing persecution and danger to find sanctuary. You know, we're in the sanctuary today. It's supposed to be a safe place. And whether it was children of war or orphans, children of war orphans in the early church, or centers of learning for the poor in the Middle Ages, or the first stop for the newly arrived during the First and Second Great Awakenings in colonial America, or the prayer meetings in the slave cabins. You see, the church, at its best, is an anchor of hope in a new land. No matter where, the church should be that place of refuge. But is it? Do we do what we need to do? Have we shut down the border of our own hearts because of the political environment we are in? Now, I know there are no easy answers. I would love to tell you all the ways to fix it. But we need to see if we are just looking to just take care of our own, or are we going to reach out to lift up the least of these? Do we want to push into the borders of our new life? You know, American Baptists, one of the denominations this church belongs to, has settled 93,000 refugees in recent history through their churches and church world service. and many more informally through the programs of practical ministry that happen in our churches every day. This church has helped refugees from Sudan, and several ministries such as World Relief down on Central Avenue and World Vision down in Federal Way work with refugees. They visit that immigration prison every week in Tacoma. If you want to go help, you can go be trained and go down and speak the word of the Lord. But is that all we need to do? As Pastor Braxton spoke last week, a person's ability to do social justice is proportional to our ability to empathize with the other. The folks that are different from us. To understand a little bit of what they're going through. I know there are difficult situations because of the economics in this world, and I also know that we have the capacity to love the stranger in our midst. It is how God made us. We do not have a finite amount of love and resources, no matter what our leaders may say. It comes from God Himself. And so we can love. It is not easy to do so, but we may. I know, at a minimum, we can at least advocate for those refugees to quickly and efficiently hear their claims for asylum so they can be reunited with their families, whether on this border or across it. We need to ensure that children and fathers and mothers stay together. It reflects on us. We need to at least not be the ones who slam the doors because our political leaders tell us we should. You see, they want us to stay afraid of the others, so that we don't reach out, so that we only listen to them. Many of you know that I worked for 9 years in a church of Central American immigrants before I came here. Most of them came in the 80s as political refugees, fleeing the wars of El Salvador and Nicaragua and Guatemala. And if you think that the violence in some of those cities that you see on the news is overblown, it is not. Just like times of history here in the United States, in many of our cities, including Seattle, if you live in a particular neighborhood, in a particular city, you have really two choices. You either join the gang or you die. That's the choice you got. And if you don't want to join and you want to live, your only choice is to flee. I knew many youth who had to make a difficult decision at the ages of 10 and 11 and 12, where they had to be separated. They had to choose to leave their mother, their only family behind, and flee to find some relative that they think went to a city in the north, just so they might have a chance to live. But the church here and the church there was the only sanctuary, the only safe place for those fleeing the violence, and the hospital that helped those trapped in the violence to heal. You see, the doors of the church are not only open to those who've kept their hands clean. If it was, then the attendance wouldn't be quite as good this morning, preacher included. But the church at its best is an amazing opportunity for hope. Because the church I served in San Francisco It wasn't only a place where people could escape to. It was a place where folks could come out of the life of violence and come into a life of hope and redemption. Where the nicknames would change from Grumpy to Preacher. Things like that are only possible in the presence of God. The church needs to be a little bit like Egypt. Not the Egypt of today, not the Egypt of Jesus' day. You see, for probably about 5 years, they allowed the Holy Family sanctuary in their midst. We know nothing of the time they had in Egypt, but they were saved. They were able to stay. Jesus' first words were probably not understood by the neighbors around him. And yet, in the spirit of true hospitality, somehow they allowed them to live and survive and grow, and eventually return to Nazareth, where Jesus' ministry began. We call Jesus by the name Emmanuel, which means God with us. And in this Advent season, we discover, just like many refugees have, that the God who came in Jesus Christ will never abandon, will never abuse, but will welcome us for always into his presence and into his peace. Always, always the gate is open. Jesus promises to be with us through the darkness in this world. He does not protect us from the darkness. He allows us to see the light and not be overcome by that darkness. In a world where people are looking for work and where kids go hungry and are abused and where there is violence in our streets and we are planning for war, Jesus promises to stay with us through it all. In all these depressing and discouraging and disillusioning situations, our Lord is with us. Emmanuel. We're never completely without companionship if we are in the caravan of Jesus. You see, in a world where there may not be any more room at the inn, there is always room at the manger. If we make the trip to Bethlehem, we will find the one who will stay with us on our journey every step of the way, who will guide us towards an everlasting kingdom, one marked by love and peace and justice, just like these Advent candles symbolize today. If we give those least of these around us the love and support of God, we will find that the true comfort and true support for ourselves as well. There is more to Advent than the pursuit of personal peace, than just looking out for ourselves and trying to keep ourselves safe. In this time of preparation for Christmas, we are also challenged to testify to the power of Christ in this world, in us and in those right next to us. We need to tell this world what Emmanuel is up to, where light comes into this world and darkness does not overcome it. Here's our lesson. Our challenge is, as Christians, never simply just stay close to Jesus and enjoy his forgiveness and acceptance and peace for ourselves. We also need to explain to this world why we are choosing to be welcoming to the stranger when things around us is so hard. That is what faith offers us. When we see our need and the need of others, and we know in Jesus that there will be enough. That the fount of blessing will never run dry. We know that God will make a way Somehow. We can think about what God has done for me, but it's even better if we talk about what God has done for us. We can pray around the Christmas table, thanking God for our blessings, but how much better it is if we have an extra hand at that table and we bless somebody else. You see, it's a tricky thing being a witness to the light. It's easy to move the focus from the true light of Jesus to ourselves, where it becomes more important to put up the Christmas lights than talk to the neighbors across the street. If you spend time with the true light, Jesus Christ, we need to witness to that light of Christ. We need to take down that wall that we've built up around our hearts. It will hurt, but that hurt means you're actually feeling something. This Christmas, Jesus invites you to join him on his journey through the difficult paths and witness the light. Maybe you'll see a neighbor, someone right next door you can encourage this Christmas. Maybe you'll advocate for justice for all people in this land, no matter their immigration status. Maybe you'll break down your own barriers that have kept you from loving that neighbor. Jesus invites you to join him in tearing down the wall of your heart. There is no better gift he can offer. He doesn't ask for anything else. All he wants for you to do is share your life with him, for him to take it and remake it in his image. Now, you may look at your life and you think, I'm not good enough. I'm too far gone. I feel more like Herod than some of those magi that came to worship at the feet of Jesus. I've messed up in too many ways. Jesus wouldn't want to walk with me. No, Jesus does not care what your past was. He only cares about the path you're going. And whether it's by yourself or with him. He wants you to stop hiding behind the wall of your own heart and cross into the new life. And if you do that, the incredible saving love of God will allow you to reach through the barbed wire of distrust and hate and allow you to share that light of life with others and witness the light of Jesus. Will you be a witness to the light? Take down that wall.
What a word. What a word. Let's thank God for Reverend Anckorn. Powerful word. There's so much for us to chew on. I wrote some things down. We can't be silent about the death and the suffering of children. What part of the wall are you? What part of the wall am I? Take down the wall to your hearts. Because with God, there will always be enough. I wonder if somebody here today needs to take down the wall to their heart and let Jesus come in. Is that word talking to somebody today who doesn't know Jesus for themselves? If you feel that that's you, we want to offer you a relationship with Jesus Christ today, on today. If that's you, won't you take the step forward? Or maybe someone here today, they've been dating New Beginnings for a long time, but they haven't made a commitment. And this reminded you, this just stirred your heart, and you know that you need to make a commitment to be in relationship, because we're all meant to do this justice thing together, not by ourselves. We can face all the trials, all the things happening in the world together. We can't do it by ourselves, and we can only do it with the help of Jesus. So today I want to offer you a relationship with Jesus Christ if you don't have one, or if you don't have a church home. We're not perfect, but we love God and we love each other, and we're doing this Christian life together. So please come if you know that God is calling you on today. The doors of the church are open.
Use anything